Hey, and welcome to Rauta's lighter metal reviews. When I say lighter, I mean as opposed to heavier stuff, the extreme metal kind you're guys more or less used to on the channel. This one is Vulture Industries, Ghosts from the Past. And this band actually turned 20 last year when this album was released. It's also, coincidentally, a band that I got to interview at Inferno a while ago. Now, this band, however, has history beyond their founding year 2003, that is, not 2023, what I was thinking. So, technically speaking, we could say it's celebrating its 25th anniversary, or that is kind of a past, but nonetheless, with Vulture Industries, 20 years and still going strong. Now, this album came already a few months ago and features quite oceanic cover theme. Here we have a boat that is crushed under waves. We have a pair of hands, some kind of a sea ghost. We have something flipping around here. One can only guess what this has to do with the title. Now, nonetheless, here we have the backside of it featuring track list, and this is about 40 minutes, give or take, and then some. Now, this is a curious band because these guys also have, at least some of them have, a black metal presence, which Norway is of course mostly known for. This one does have a booklet, a thin one, inside here, but this band itself has basically nothing to do with black metal. I mean, the vocalist of the band, who I got to have a talk with, really pleasant person, has been involved in not only black metal projects as a musician, but also seems to be a sound tech producer person. So a lot of activities going on in the world of metal, even though Vulture Industries might be a little bit of one of those weird birds. It's a kind of a Norwegian platypus, if you guess or understand my metaphor. Now here you of course have the lyric sheet, and then we have this more like a liner notes side with the information, and the Zoom doesn't want to give you that information, so let's just call it a day and put this baby back into the digiback box where it belongs. Now, give you a little bit more on the backside history, backstory, if you will. Here is the discography so far, so 5 albums in and then some smaller releases. What is curious, however, that here early years from 2007 to 2017, the band released a new album every 3 or 4 years. Now it's been more than 6 years between these two, which is something to do, possibly, people getting older and becoming more busier and all that stuff, but that's something to speculate or read about interviews if you want to go deeper into that. Now, my personal history with the band is not exactly too deep or vast. I've only reviewed this second album back in the days and I didn't like it. It was just too avant-garde-ish for my liking, and that's exactly how this band is labeled here as in terms of genre on Metal Archives: avant-garde/progressive metal. Now with the 5th album, Ghosts from the Past, I would say this is more related to heavy rock music, even kind of a heavy retro rock rather than plain metal music. But basically it's crossing, the borders, just going from one side to another, really, when we're talking about whether this is metal or whether this is rock. I mean, these genres are more or less overlapping one another, and sometimes people just put metal under the box of rock and roll music, which is fair in the big picture, but of course, we know better that metal is its own entity, much like human being is different from apes and monkeys and all that stuff, even though we're both bipedal. No, I'm just derailing here a little bit to kill time. Seriously speaking, though, I'm explaining this because you need to know that while Vulture Industries definitely has place on Metal Archives, and while it counts as a metal band, this album is in particular, in my opinion anyway, more of a rock and roll nature. That being said, it's not really a heavy album. You could say it's heavy in terms of rock, but it's kind of lightweight when it comes to metal. If this doesn't explain what I'm going for here, I don't know what helps except that you give this album a listen and decide for yourself. And feel free to disagree with me. That's part of the charm here. In order to have a dialogue or conversation about music and the fine details and genre definitions, we really need to listen and, well, then converse. So throughout the 7 tracks, this band explores somewhat retro-ish aspects of rock and roll and metal music. I mean, there are lots of parts which are like taking back. Much like Ghost is doing with their own music. So if you feel like there's a bunch of reference points with the music that is like, hey, this is something kind of a 70s or whatever, yeah, it's definitely right there. But of course with the modern sound and ways to interpret this music and all. Which makes this rather fascinating because there are lots of interesting ideas and it's almost like catchy album. And this is something which is not exactly given when we're talking about avant-garde-ish or progressive metal or rock music. Because of course progressive and even more so avant-garde-ish takes on rock and metal are kind of a marginal in nature. That's kind of comes with the territory, so to speak. But I find this approaching more on the mainstream side of things, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, this kind of stuff, in my opinion, kind of needs that. Needs in the sense like, yeah, this could be more approachable to a lot of people out there who want to like get into the world of this kind of music but are afraid because progressive sounds too nerdy, like you have double glasses on your nose, and when you have avant-garde you probably have some Amish curlies on your hair and dressing funnily, and you don't want to be part of that stuff. You're like, okay, these are too hipstery people for me. I'm just a normal metal or rock and roll fan. I don't want to go there. Now Vulture Industries is like, okay, let you welcome in. It's like an entry level thing. You don't seem to dress outright goofy when you're listening to Vulture Industries. So it's kind of safe to approach that. And yet still you kind of get that progressive vibe and the retroist take on things, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm down in the rabbit hole, but I'm not there yet deep into the weird ass territory of music. This is not to slander these given styles, but more like saying you kind of need to have a special piece of ears and mind in order to really digest that stuff. For example, I often joke that I'm allergic to avant-garde takes and avant-garde metal. That is very true in very terms, especially in terms of black metal. I kind of dislike the whole thing. I mean, it's not like so much like I oppose the whole genre or sub-genre, but it's not really doing things for me. It's like having pineapple on a pizza, and I'm like, no. But for some people, pineapple on a pizza works. So why am I to deny that for them, I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm not the police in terms of music. But back to the Vulture Industries thing. I'm just saying this is kind of picking the best worlds, parts of different worlds and putting them together and trying to make sense to it all. And it kind of works. For me, this could be a lot catchier, but I like the production. I like the vocals, even though sometimes they're like, yeah, I'm too much on the deep side of things. And some people hate that. I was talking to my boss actually today, and like, he knows this band, and like, you want to listen to this because it might be his cup of tea, and he's like, he doesn't really like this kind of a vocals when it gets too deep, and it's like kind of a not natural feeling. And I have to kind of agree with that. But then again, I know this vocalist has many different ways to execute the vocal styles and all that stuff. So it's not that really all the way down. Then again, it's not going really high pitch either. So it's not like this is going to some level of progressive stuff like, say, Leprous, which I cannot really stand. So in my opinion, the whole balance is right there. Whenever we're talking about individual instrument sounds or whatever we're talking about vocals, I think it's very diverse and well balanced. For me, the only flaw, if you can call it that, is like this could have more memorable pieces, could have more memorable parts in the songs where you're like, yeah, now I'm moshing to it, now I'm just banging my fist and whatever. But then again, this is not music you're going to bang your fist or head to anyway. I mean, this is still kind of a side of progressive metal and all. Now, with this long opinion, weird or not, I guess I'm gonna leave it to you. If you're into this kind of metal, or you are not shy of avant-garde takes and whatnot, maybe check it out. You will find links provided in the description box. Figure out for yourself if you are into this kind of stuff. And if you're not, well, that's pretty much of it. Now off you go, check out the next review coming up later on. And meanwhile, off you go, listen to some good music and stay brutal.